There. Welcome to the Rotary E Club. Today is October 9th, and we have a great speaker, and I'm excited to be here. Rick, you want to do the invocation, and then David could do the pledge?
Okay. All right, let's bow our heads in prayer. Give thanks for all the gifts that we've been given and for Rotary and our leaders so that we may go out into the world and do good things in our communities and around the world to help others, to improve their lives so that the whole world will be a better place for all. Thank you for the rains we've had, and thank you for the great weekend of fun we had here in Dallas as Texas once again reclaimed the golden hat against Oklahoma and a big game, big win. And thank you for letting all my friends and old attorney friends and such travel well and make it here and home okay. Thank you for all of our gifts, and we may use those as best we can through Rotary. In His name, we ask all these things in His name. Amen.
Nice. David, you want to do the pledge? I think Rick has the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect.
And considering where we are, God bless the Queen.
Okay. This is true. This is true. Oh, do you know the difference between Canada and Mexico? When you're in Mexico, they go, "Hey, how you doing?" And in Canada, it's "How you doing,
What?
eh?" Anyway,
Yeah.
that's it. So, few
Howard?
things. Yes.
A little more information on the Challenge Air event.
Okay.
It is.
You're a little low. You got to bring up your mic a little.
I don't have a control on it, but I'll try to speak
That's
out.
better. Whatever you did made it better.
Challenge Air event is an invitation for us to attend at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, and it will be an event. I believe it starts at 6:30 on November 9th, goes till 10:30. You can go online and register, and they'll have a special speaker there.
Okay.
And it's their 25th anniversary celebration. And then I think I mentioned last week that we have another Fly Day coming up, and I am looking for that date.
I think it's the first Saturday.
What is it? What is it? A fly day?
November, the first Saturday, I think.
Fly Day
It's a fly day.
on
What is that?
it's going to be
A fly day is when we take the physically challenged or challenge kids up on the pilots that have their plane. It's called Challenge Air. We take kids up on a flight for about 20 minutes. They get to hold the controls of the plane.
Nice.
The pilot then gives them the wings and a certificate that there's a certified co-pilot. And so they think if they can fly a plane, they can do anything.
How cool.
And so it's a very, and last time we had about 120 kids. Sometimes we have as many as 170 kids. But the pilots donate their time and their plane and everything.
How nice. I didn't know that. That's really nice. Here's another nice thing Rotary does. I'm not surprised, but that's I just found out in McKinney, they're building a handicap park for kids with challenges at the dog park. They're
Right.
putting in a whole, it's like a $250,000 project, because we went there to walk the dog and we saw it and we didn't know what we were looking at. And I went online and it was from Rotary. So it was really very nice to see that. Very nice.
well, the Fly Day is November 17th from 8 to 4.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We will be there.
You need to get a team together.
And it's a executive airport, right?
Oh, there's
Yes.
Lisa. Okay, she made it.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you for coming. You know, Lisa, what I thought, can you hear me, Lisa? I don't know if she could hear us. Can you hear me, Lisa? I'm not sure she could hear us. I was going to say I'll bring the DVDs for Bill for the Malawi school when I come to the party. That way it'd be easy to give it to you. So I haven't heard from Bill, and I know he wanted that. So can you hear me, Lisa? Can you shake your head if you hear me? I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, well, anyway, that's what I'm planning on doing. Is there any other business that we need to discuss? We'll do the officer
Don't
thing.
forget about our Halloween party. Don't forget about it.
Yeah, I'm planning on being there. Let me just confirm the date. I know it's
The
not
26th, Friday the 20, it's Friday the 26th, I believe.
3 p.m. in Grand Prairie. It's the same place
Right.
we've been going. Okay, and you're bringing the candy and stuff.
The little prizes and stuff and the refreshments.
Okay, I'll be there. I don't know if anyone wants to come, but I asked Vicky if she wasn't working if she would. She doesn't really know if she's working in or not. But if she's not, she'll come. Okay, is there any other
It
business?
sounds like Larkin.
Yeah, it sounds
Howard.
like Larkin. Yeah. Hi, Lisa. Can you-
Hi, I'll mute you. Sorry.
That's
A
okay.
bit late getting on.
That's okay. I was just saying that I'll bring my videos for the Malawi girls when I come to the party. And Linda wanted to know if we could come a little early, like 6, so you won't stay as late so the kids could get to sleep. Because it's a school day.
So 6 o'clock on the 30th?
Yeah, is that
On the-
okay?
Yes.
That'll be fine.
Perfect. And you'll let us know what the donation is for the food?
Yes, was there any discussion on what y'all want to have?
No. Do you want to discuss that now? Is there anyone who has suggestions? I know what you had in the past was fine, but does anyone have any?
Okay, anyone has any ideas, just text them or email them to me, and then by next week we'll finalize the menu.
Okay. Oh, look, Charlotte's here. That's nice.
Okay.
Oh, we got a full house tonight. It's good for you, Ava. You're bringing them all in. We don't always have this many people. It varies. Sometimes we have a few more, sometimes a few less. But it's always nice to see more people than not. Is there any other business that anyone wants to discuss before I introduce the speaker? So I think we're going to discuss new officers at the party when we're all together and see. Because we have to submit it. They keep asking me to give them the names of the next group, and I don't know who to tell them. So we'll figure it out when we're there. Okay, let me see. Then I am going to, if there isn't any more business, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Eva. Eva has sent me an intro, so I'm going to read it. Why do some people always project a good attitude? Why do others want to argue every single point? Does dealing with certain people make you want to go hide in a bowl of Ben and Jerry's? Actually, I like hiding in a bowl of Ben and Jerry's even from with nice people. Yeah, it's nice.
We were at Ben and Jerry.
I know. I love Ben and Jerry's. If you can answer yes to any of these, you're in good company. Our speakers pondering these things a lot. And after her 30-year career in technology, she wrote a book called The Reluctant Leader, From Technology Expert to Human Expert. That's an interesting transition. Eva and her husband had careers that took them around the world, but they now call Denver home. She volunteered at a downtown homeless shelter, applying her leadership work to that population. Here today to talk about getting along, lessons from the homeless shelter. Please join me in welcoming our speaker and author and fellow ice cream addict. I'm going to add that part for me, Eva Doyle. Eva, I'm going to mute my microphone so that it doesn't make noise. If I disappear for a minute, it's because I have a dog and sometimes he wants me to take him out, but I'm not leaving, okay? It's your turn, Eva. Go ahead.
Well, hello, everybody. This is going to be kind of a fun, interesting experience. So I'm looking forward to seeing how well some of my chuckle lines translate across Zoom here. But thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me to try out my material on you folks, and I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by that. Is that, like I said, I've written one book from The Reluctant Leader, and my work at the homeless shelter has kind of inspired me to write another one. And so I'm enjoying trying out some of that material in various groups and just seeing, does it resonate as well with folks as I'd like to think that it would. So when people think about volunteers at a homeless shelter, they typically think of food service, the soup line, the soup kitchen, making the food, serving the food. Well, if you've ever had any of my cooking, you would know that that was probably not my strength. So what I have done instead with the homeless shelter is have worked with them in the life skills classes. And the one that they asked me to teach, because of my extensive experience working, being a manager, and that kind of thing, was a class called Workplace Survival Skills. Oh, what a cute little girl. Sorry, just had to say that. So, and the goal with this particular homeless shelter, because one thing you may not realize is that there are actually different types of shelters for the homeless. There are, the one that we may hear about the most on the news and such is sort of the overnight emergency shelter, where they provide beds for folks. But the one that I was in was actually a 4-month residential program with the goal of getting these folks back into work and back into permanent housing. So there was a big emphasis on employment skills, and that's where my class came in, along with a lot of other classes as well. And what we'd focused in on for that class is what I would call really strategic skills. So we talked about having a good attitude, having a strong self-esteem, and good interpersonal skills. So we would talk about and focus in on those 3 things, and that's what I'm going to be focusing in with you all today, and hopefully provide you with some perspective and so on those things that may help you with your club, help you with your work, but just help you, give you some extra thoughts about how to get along with folks in a way that is just a more productive environment for everybody involved. So when we started talking about attitude with the homeless folks, is that, tell them a good attitude is, well, what does that mean? What does a good attitude look like? How do you present that in the workplace? And we would talk about that the basic thing to do, the easiest way to do it is show up and show up civil. So what I mean by that is that you show up on time and you show up in a relatively cheerful, good mood. And that is not as easy as it might sound for a lot of people. I certainly know some folks who just have no sense of time. Doesn't faze them. They're never late because it's always a moving target, for them. But for a lot of employers in the workplace, especially if you're doing any type of customer service, if you have a retail establishment, showing up on time, even early, is a skill that people really need to understand that they need to have. So I'd say show up on time. And then the showing up civil part can sometimes be harder than you might think. Some of us are just naturally quiet, period. Some of us are naturally much more quiet in the morning. And when you tend to come in that way and you're quiet and you're not kind of talking, you're not kind of sharing your story, people will sometimes make one up. They'll assume that you're grumpy. They'll assume that you're just, morning bad mood person, which may not be the case. Or we have also, I think, known people who come in and they're slamming things around in such a way that they're really communicating, I'm in a bad mood. And that kind of thing does not portray a good attitude at work or anywhere else. So I would talk to the folks that you really need to think about, what are you communicating with your behavior when you show up? And that if people do tend to kind of slam things around, that's sort of their natural way, is that they're sending a message whether they mean to or not. And another way that we need to think about our attitude is even just our facial expressions. Like for me, as we started this call, I tried to keep kind of a nice, neutral to smiling facial expression because my natural, relaxed face looks something like this. Now, I learned as a teenager what that portrayed because my grandmother said to me, why do you look so mad all the time? Well, there's a strong family resemblance. So I was a little bit surprised at her self-awareness that was also her face. Of course, it's my grandmother. I'm from the South, so I don't sass back, but I'm sitting there thinking, it's your face. We look the same. But having been made aware of that at an early age, so I always try just to think about keeping a neutral to happy look, because otherwise I look like I want to kill you. And that doesn't really portray a great attitude in the workplace. So I always try to think about that. I always try to be a big smile, and I ended up in a reputation with most places of having a big smile, which is a good thing, because what I was really trying to do was portray more what I felt inside, which was friendly, welcoming, glad to see you, glad to work with you, glad to be here, which I know that my resting face just doesn't convey. So really try to just be aware of that and make sure that the message that I wanted to get across was what I was really sending. So we would talk about that. We would talk about the fact that for everybody, it's not easy to portray that, but that's an important part of a good attitude, is thinking through ahead of time what that looks like, showing up civil, and making sure that how you perceive civil is what you're communicating to the rest of the folks, because there's a chance that it might not be. Then when we talk about self-esteem with the homeless population, and as you can imagine, a lot of them are struggling with that at that point. But that is such an important filter of how we think about our other and how we perceive our other human interactions. So I'll just give you, a quick example. Like today, right now, I realize that on this camera, my hair has not quite turned out the way I'd expected. So when I'm in person and you can see more of me, you actually see I've got this nice little curly top thing, going on. But through this, it just sort of looks like, that I was like, oh, golly, I should have done more with my bangs or pulled more back or, all this kind of thing. But on the other hand, I could be looking at this and thinking, this is my messy, cute look. And I am just looking so adorable here. Everybody wishes they looked as good as me right now. And the only real difference between those two is how you feel about yourself, right? So, and the same thing, sometimes, people show up, I don't know, usually when I mention that, everyone, usually, well, at least one person has experienced this. You show up with one black shoe and one blue shoe, or, one black sock and one navy sock, or something like that. And those kinds of things. So you can think about those, because embarrassed and, upset about that, or you can just kind of roll with it like, yeah, I'm setting a new style here. And again, it's just that self-esteem filter. And one aspect of that filter that can really come into play with a lot of us is what I call is the little negative voice. Now, we all have little voices inside our head that talk to us. And if you don't have any, you probably do need to see a shrink, because it's just a part of, we just have an internal dialogue kind of going on. And sometimes it's a good thing. Like when it tells you, don't talk politics with your father-in-law at Thanksgiving, that's a good inner voice, generally. But when that inner voice can become almost vicious and tell you that nobody cares about what you think, nobody cares about what you do, you should just shut up and stay at home kind of thing, that's when you need to get that voice kind of under control. So what I suggest to people is that I gave my little voice a name. And I named it after a politician that I didn't like very much. And of course, these days, there's a wealth of riches in that area of politicians we could probably all do without. But I gave it that name because you don't want to name it after like a parent that you had problems with, or a teacher who really, did you in. You don't want to add more emotion to it. But the emotion of somebody that, you have a disdain for, that you think is kind of dumb or just kind of lame or just totally tone deaf in their thinking. So you name that voice that, and then when it tries to tell you, like in my case, being a writer and a speaker, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your book. Nobody wants to read the second one either. So when that kind of voice comes out there, then it's easier to say, you were the one who wanted to institute this policy. Who cares about what you think? Push him away. So you make that voice, just trying to minimize it. Sometimes I picture that politician, I picture him very small, very, very tiny, in the corner. And I would talk to the homeless population about that voice, and some of them would really nod. What was interesting was my ex-addicts were often the most insightful and had the most self-awareness. Some of the other folks would be like, oh no, I don't have any kind of negative voice inside me. We all do. We all do. It's just how do you use and channel it so that it does not become something that really impacts how you deal with other people, so that you don't start letting that negative voice spill over into everybody around you, and you start assuming that just because somebody didn't say hello to you that, well, they don't like me. They're not any good and I don't like them. Sometimes people don't see you. They're focused on the fact that I just left my keys in the car, or I just lost my phone. There are all kinds of reasons why people may not acknowledge you in the way that you expected or wanted. And often the best thing to do is just to, if you're making up a story anyway, make up one that doesn't hurt your feelings. So think about that self-esteem filter and apply it in ways that lead towards more positive relationships rather than negative ones. Then the third thing we would talk about in this class at the homeless shelter was we would talk about interpersonal relations, and we would especially focus on anger and how people deal with and manage their anger. And again, anger is one of those things that can be a positive. I never want to tell anybody to get the idea that I'm saying, oh, don't be angry. No. Analyze your anger and see what it's going on there. And I'll give you an example. So anger typically is laying on top of other strong emotions. And they're typically the emotions that we don't really want to acknowledge or deal with. Disappointment, loss, grief, shame, fear. All those kinds of things can bubble up into anger. And so we need to be able to kind of think about that and give a little perspective to that anger and say, okay, what is really going on here? There was a case not too long ago in traffic, and I had gotten an email on my phone that I had not gotten a speaking gig, that I thought I had a great connection with the meeting planner. We seemed to be on the right wavelength. I was all excited. I'd already spent the money, and it didn't happen. They picked somebody else. So I'm driving along, and our Denver traffic is pretty bad. And I start yelling at the car in front of me, which is atypical. I don't usually do that. And I realized what was really going on was that I needed to process that disappointment, not just shove it aside and pretend it wasn't there, just spend just a little bit of time, because it doesn't take a lot of time when you really acknowledge, wow, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, this opportunity didn't happen, and I got to move on without causing an accident here in the middle of the road. So that's the things that we would talk about to them, is that when you feel really angry, it's because you need to see what else is going on. And I had a very nice chat with one of the gentlemen there, and he was a younger guy, he was larger, he was tall, he was muscular, and physically intimidating. And he talked about a time when he was just sitting in a restaurant coffee shop, and they just came up to him and said, this section's closed now. We need you to move to the next one. They weren't telling him to leave the restaurant. They were just telling him, this section is closed. We'd like you to move. But what he heard was, you don't belong here. And that really upset him. That sense that he didn't belong anywhere, and everybody seemed to know it. And they were telling him, you don't belong here. So he really reacted. And we talked about that, and we talked it through, and by the end of the conversation, he was almost ready to go back and apologize, but he said, oh, no, I'm never going to do that, blah, blah, blah. which is, I mean, the other person may have forgotten about it anyway. But I thought, but he gained some valuable insight into the cause of that anger and how, that's really not a great way to deal with people. But I will give just a quick example of how anger can be useful. Now, I have run 4 triathlons. I did them to participate. I'm not competitive in them, but it was something that, just a goal of mine, want to do that. I had to learn to swim in order to do a triathlon. And so I always struggled with the swimming. And in my very first one is, because we did it in a loop. So we started on the beach and came back. And on the back side of the loop, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, I haven't done a very good swim, I'm upset with myself for not being able to calm down and really, get a good stroke going. And it seems like they're just pushing the shore further and further away, from me. And so I'm not in a very good place mentally. And there's a lady in front of me who kicks me in the chest. She's a breaststroker. So, they've got that strong frog kick, and she kicks me in the chest. And she doesn't mean to. She doesn't know I'm there. I'm behind her. But it was just like, all the self-pity I was feeling suddenly bubbled into anger, And if I could have caught up to her, I would have grabbed that foot. But of course, I was too slow. So I just had to keep, swimming along. But that anger gave me the energy to finish. That anger turned self-pity into strength, which I needed at that point. So anger can be a good thing. But when we're dealing in general with the workplace, you don't want to be the angry person that no one wants to deal with, because we isolate people who are always angry. This is not pleasant to be around. You never know when they're going to go off. And you just don't want to be on the other end of that. And some folks think that just because they're angry at a decision or something else, the fact that they're not actually angry with you should mean it doesn't matter. But it does, because you're still dealing with the aftershock, the waves of that person's anger, and it's not pleasant. So the thing is to manage your anger. Think about what makes it bubble up and how to get it to, when you do need it, use it as a force for good, but otherwise manage it so that it doesn't affect the folks around you. Now, one of the reasons actually that I got involved with the homeless was that we live near a nice, big, beautiful park, one of Denver's beautiful parks. And we will see homeless folks, street folks out there. And what got me was how kind and gentle they were with our dog. We have a lively English Cocker Spaniel who loves every person he ever met. And he wants to come up and have everybody pet him. He is the Walmart greeter of Denver. He's just like, everybody ought to come and say hello. And he doesn't matter. He doesn't care if you look strung out on drugs or if you're dirty or smelly. And dogs, so probably the smellier the better, kind of thing. But he would just wag his tail and walk up and talk to and just want everybody around to pet him. And it was really lovely to see how some of those homeless folks who looked like they were in such despair, who kind of had my face, my resting face, and they would light up when Murphy came near them. And many of them would want to share with him whatever food they had. I mean, these are people who are going in the trash for stuff, which of course Murphy would do too if I would let him. But they don't have a lot of food. And the fact that they were willing to share it with this friendly dog really touched my heart. And I thought, these folks are part of my community. How can I help them? And I think too about how well Murphy exemplifies some of those principles I was trying to get across in my class at the homeless shelter. How he always shows up with a good attitude. He's always a tail wagging, got the ball in his mouth. He's always ready to play and interact with people in a positive manner. He just brings so much joy by showing up. People laugh, people smile. They just love being around him. And then when I think about the self-esteem factor, there are people who don't like dogs. I don't know what's wrong with those people, but there are people who don't. They don't want to be around him. So on the rare occasion that he finds one of those people, he just goes on to the next person. He doesn't go back and like try to lift his leg on them or, do some kind of revenge or anything like that. It's just like, okay, he just keeps moving on because he's got a good self-esteem and he knows to just keep finding the next person. They'll be there. And then when you think about managing anger, we've all seen how dogs can get angry. They'll bark or they'll growl if maybe they're not getting something that they want. And so I do get some of that from Murphy. But the thing is that by and large, he measures that. He doesn't bark and growl at every little thing. He kind of saves it for the stuff that he really wants. He really wants to get our attention. He doesn't bark constantly. In fact, he's a pretty quiet dog overall. So when he does bark, it's like, oh, he must really need something. So those are just the things that as I was leading the folks at the homeless shelter through, these are the things that seem to resonate the most with them. It's having that good attitude, knowing how to present a good attitude, knowing how to deal with self-esteem issues, and especially the little voice that will sometimes want to drag you down, and understanding that self-esteem is a filter that can affect our interactions. And then in dealing with other people, managing our anger in a way so that it does not affect our interactions with folks, so that they do not feel that anger from us when there's no need for that. So those are the interactions and some things that I hope to be putting in my next book. And I just want to say thank you all for giving me a chance to run through some of the material. And I'll turn it back over to Howard.
Thanks. Quick question. Those are the things you want them to learn. How do you teach it? Do you give them a strategy, or do you tell them stories to make them aware of it, or you do both?
Well, what I actually do is I make them talk. So to show you kind of an example here, is that I have these colored paddles. I don't have them close by or grab one, but I have these colored paddles. They're about this size, and they're actually miniature whiteboards. So I have them at the start of a class. I have them write fact or fiction on these whiteboards because they're reversible, two-sided. And then I'll throw things out like, it's easy to come to work smiling. Is that true or false? Is that fact or fiction? And so many of them will hold up fact. But then there are people like me, it takes me a little while to get going in the morning, and I might hold up fiction. And so then I'll say to them, okay, great, why is that a fact for you? Why is that a fiction for you? And I'll get them talking. And so I'd have a whole list of things, and the ones that I emphasize in this talk are the ones that seem to generate the most conversation. So that way I get them to really talk and share with each other, because the wisdom, especially when you're training adults, is in the room. And that's what you really want to try to bring out. And especially for some of these folks who, they're obviously at a low time in their lives. And they get a lot of people who tell them stuff and who treat them like they're fifth graders. So I wanted to provide them with an experience that respected them as adults and gave them a chance to show to themselves, more than anything, that they know something that's useful. And I would get some very insightful comments. There was one recovering heroin addict who was just really, he just really had things on target. I was very impressed with him. So that's how I did it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was just wondering, because there's a lot of ways you could go about doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Anyone? Okay. Well, we want to thank you for coming. We're going to close out our meeting in a minute. We do a thing called the four-way test, and then we'll meet again next week. So the four-way test is a rotary thing.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yep.
Okay. So let's do our four-way test of the things we think, say, and do first.
Is it the truth?
Second, is it fair to all?
Fair to all concerned.
Third, will it build
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And in our club, we have a fifth one. Will it be fine?
Yeah. I've heard that one too.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I look forward to seeing you next week. And I think, is it the week after that we have a social? Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 30th.
Okay, and I'll see you before then, Linda. I'll see you at the
Halloween.
at the Halloween thing, and just coordinate with me before we go. You know, is anyone else coming? Like the last time, do you have anyone besides me?
I don't know. Last time Jose came, and so I'll try to get a hold of him. Or Rick, you had some contact with him about whether or not he was going to stay in the club, and he indicated that he did want to stay in. So if you could contact Jose and let him know about the Halloween party on the 26th, Boys and Girls Club. Would you do that for me, Rick?
Okay, has that been sent out in an email to everybody, Howard?
I have mentioned it. I could put it in our next club email and let people know that if they would like to attend, they're welcome to. I know I'm going, and I know Linda, and I assume if Linda's going to be, David will probably be there as well.
Oh, yes.
But we had somebody a few years ago from another club. I think we're from Grand Prairie.
Oh, that was when I was out of town, and we had the Grand Prairie Metro Club help us.
Oh, okay.
And that was Melinda
Okay.
Rogers.
I wasn't sure because it helps. The more the merrier. They got lots of these kids are really young, so it helps to have some adults.
And now we have about 50 kids. We started out with only about 35, but now we're up to kindergarten through third grade.
I was going
instead
to
of second grade.
suggest that what we had the year before was a little better for the kids. We had those big bottles of stuff, you know, like the candy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and Lisa, we will need to get your urns with the spigot on it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
yeah.
hear me or not,
I'm
but
not
I
sure.
will get that with her. I'll try to get it. Well, I have to get it as soon as we get home.
Okay, I'm just letting you know. I just thought, and also if we had the toys like we had the other time, I think the kids really like those little
Yeah.
toys.
And I had picked up some Halloween pencils too, the pencils with Halloween stuff on them.
Okay.
So I'm picking up a few things on the trip here.
Hey, what we do, Ava, every Halloween, there's a boys and girls club, and it's in a lower income area, and these kids have like pretty much nothing to look forward to for Halloween. And we do a party. We do 2 parties for the little ones, and we give them candy and little toys, and it's really fun to do. I enjoy it. I taught for 10 years, and it kind of reminds me of school, but in a good way. The good part, not the part when you all want night to forget.
Howard and Linda, I think it would be great to put a special email out to the members to
Okay.
tell them we're involved and encourage them. to come
Okay,
and
I
tell
could
them.
do that. Okay, I agree. I agree. So I'll send a separate email to remind people about it and to ask if anyone. And Linda, do you have can you email me the address and the location so I could put that in the email, or I could just Google it?
I can email you the address.
Okay, and I'll just put
It's
that.
real easy, 1000 Enterprise in Grand Prairie.
Okay. Okay. Well, then that's the end of the meeting. Thanks everybody for coming. I will see you all next week. And Eva, if you'd like to attend some of our meetings, I'd be happy to give you a link. And if you like our group and you'd like to become a member, the nice thing is once you're a member of a group, you go to any Rotary Club in the world. So there are a lot of Rotary clubs in Colorado. And because you're a member of this club, they have to let you attend. They can't close you out. And some of those clubs, I mean, I know in the bigger cities like New York, Dallas, and even Denver, there's like that special club, you know, the club where all the downtown building people are, the ones that own everything. And it's just a nice way to meet people. So give us some thought. We would love to have you as a member. You're the kind of person we like, someone who helps people, and cares about people. And that's one of the things I got attracted to Rotary for, is that we live in a very selfish time, and everybody's like, what's in it for me? And Rotary is really, what can I do for you? And I think we need more of that today. And that's kind of what you were talking about, what you're doing. And so you sound like a true Rotarian, so give some thought.
Thanks.
And is it
Also,
okay
Eva, our theme this year from our Rotary International President is Be the Inspiration.
Oh, okay.
Can I put you on our email list, and I'll just keep
Sure.
you, and when I send out the emails to the members, I can include you, and you're welcome to come. And if you
All right,
decide to
thanks.
join, you're welcome to be a member as well. You can come to a few meetings, see if you like it, and we'd love to have you. thanks everyone. I'll see you
Okay.
all next week. Thanks again, Eva, for coming, and have a great week. And Rick, I'll send that out sometime this week.
Yeah, what's the date on that?
I think it's the 26th of
26, Friday the 26th, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 6.
in Granbury. Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie.
I always get them at Grand Prairie and Grand Prairie.
It's 60 miles apart. Okay, we're going to be leaving now. We're going to go to dinner.
Have fun.
Bye-bye. Have a good week.
You too. Bye. Let me close. Oh, thank you, Rick.
Henry.